Hello, my beautiful people. This is Vicki here for Tuesday Q&A. And I have 4 fabulous questions, and I'm going to go through them sort of quickly so we have time to answer all 4 of them. And just want to say how thrilled I am to be here, and I hope that these sessions are helpful to you. So the first question that I have is from Kim, and she says, why can't the runaway husband see that the actions that he shows you also affect the kids? Duh. They seem to think it's separate. And I think that many people watching will be able to relate to this question because so many men walk away without having thought through the unintended consequences. And those consequences often affect the children. And so I think that it's really a matter of the men are just wrapped up in their own fantasy of their next stage in life or their own life. And they're not thinking clearly about how it's going to affect you. And they're certainly not thinking clearly about the kids. And very often I know that men think, particularly if the kids are older, they think, you know, the kids should be happy for me because I'm happy. And they love me, and so they were going to want me to be happy. And they're not aware of all the complex things that happen to kids when they can see that the father has left the mother and that the mother is devastated, and it affects them. Turn off my phone. Good. So this is just a matter of delusional oversight. You know, they're just not thinking about it. And I agree with Kim. They seem to think that it's separate without realizing how profoundly children are affected by this behavior. So that's the first question. Second one is from Christina, who says, I recently made a choice to block my runaway husband's family on social media, feeling guilty because they're innocent besides enabling him. None of them reached out to me over the holidays, and I was starting to feel like I was never part of the family. Is this a healthy choice? Should I even try and address it? I have no children with a runaway husband. Yeah, of course, they are innocent. And I think that I know in my own case, my in-laws, I loved them tremendously. But it was very, in those days, we didn't have social media like we do now. But it was very painful to communicate with them, to know about them, to hear about them. And eventually that connection sort of fell off. And that was another big loss for me. And I think that in terms of social media, that to stay connected in social media is really just opening yourself up to hear things and learn things that are going on in his family or perhaps going on with him that are painful for you. And so I think, and particularly if they're not really making a huge effort to include you and make you feel that they still care about you, that it's totally legitimate, Christina, to block. You know, in the same way we talk about no contact as being a healthy way to go in many cases, not in all, of course, when you have young children, it's not possible, with your former husband. I think that to not be observing what's going on in the family that you're no longer a part of is probably a smart thing to do in order to protect yourself. So yeah, I agree with that theory and that philosophy that you decided to block them from your social media, and that it's probably a healthy thing for you. Now the next question is from Mary Ann. It's a little long, but it's interesting, and so, you know, and I think it affects some people, maybe not a lot, but some people. And she says, my ex left 12 years ago, and I'm stuck in a strange position. When he left, I was living overseas, and I had no visa to stay if my husband wasn't with us. So I had to move back to my home country where I hadn't lived for 20 years. I was pregnant with our 3rd child and hadn't worked for 11 years, so I was petrified. I was a textbook runaway husband's case, however. However, I missed out on that moment when you need to let the pain sink in, because she was struggling to take care of 3 children and put food on the table and, you know, keep the family going. That moment you describe at your dining room table that I describe in the book Runaway Husbands with the jigsaw puzzle. I couldn't possibly let my team down. I was so overwhelmed with holding our heads above water that I couldn't allow the possibility of sinking, so I wouldn't have let myself address the pain. It's been so long now. I did everything I needed to do, and we are doing fine, except that I'm still so sad. No one can speak to me about it without me crying. I know that sinking into the pain stage is vital, but I don't know how to do it. How do I address it so long after? So that's sinking into the pain stage, for those of you who haven't read Runaway Husbands. What I talk about is allowing the pain to come and allowing yourself to feel it. And that is part of the healing and it's part of the mourning. But Marianne was busy keeping 3 children afloat in a new country and finding a job and doing it on her own. So she didn't have the luxury of really letting herself experience it and feel it. And now it's 12 years later, and it really still feels unresolved. And I so relate to that. And it's not unusual. I often hear from women who are 10, 11, 12 years out and still feeling as though it's a significant part of their lives. It's not everybody, it's not typical, but it does happen. And in this case, I can understand why. And I think that the work that you need to do, Marianne, is to be able to open your hand and let that part of your life drift behind. You don't need to go back into that sinking into the pain stage, forgive me, because that time has passed. And you may need to go for a few sessions with a therapist somewhere to help you be able to turn your focus from the past to the future and let that period of time in your life pass. And also to feel proud of yourself, because you said you got everybody's head above water, the family is afloat, you did what you needed to do, and that's fabulous, that's terrific. So congratulations to you. And now I really hope that you can look forward and have some wonderful things to look forward to in your life and start to put that chapter to rest. You lived that time, the time has passed, and now it's your time to feel happy and free. So our last question comes from Anita, and it's sort of somewhat along the same lines. She says, I'm just stuck and hopeless, especially financially. How much time and money is it worth to invest in an education at 47? Starting pretty much at zero, stay-at-home mom for 15 years, no real job history in the country that I'm in. A degree of some sort is so expensive, and I'm afraid not to find a job at over 50. Well, I think that you're asking the question because you're toying with the idea of getting that education and of retraining yourself. And I personally think it's a great idea. And I also think that 47 is the new 27. That a lot of people go back to school in their 30s and 40s, or even 50s. And that if you're trained for some kind of a job at 50, you have 20 years of work ahead of you where you can be making more money than you might make if you had not trained. So I think it's a positive thing to do. I think if you can possibly do it, go for it. You want to keep building in your life, and those 2 or 3 years of your training or your education, they'll fly by. The time will pass, and then you'll have some kind of a preparation for a job or a career. And hopefully somebody will recognize your gumption and your guts to do this and think to themselves, this is exactly the type of employee that we need. Somebody who's brave and who goes out there and really, takes life and lives it. So that's it for tonight. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Take care, everybody, and have a good week.